A big hello and a very warm welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Season 8 with me, Sonali Krishna. Today in focus are the Agritech startups. While we still have a lot of gloom and doom surrounding us, this is one sector that's really stepped up its game and it's looking bright for the Agritech startups. Hence, I have with me 3 nimble and successful Agritech startups that have really upped their games during the last 2.5 months. So without further ado, let me introduce my panel. I'm joined by Puneet Sethi, co-founder of FarmPal, Amith Agarwal, co-founder and CEO of AgriBazar, and Vasudevan Chinnthambi, co-founder of Ninjacart. So first things first, let me start with you, Puneet. Give me, your experience of how it's been in the last 2.5 months and counting. The Agritech startup, it was looking so promising now. And for you guys, although it's unfortunate, it's thanks to Covid-19 that, this sector has really come up to the fore. So how has the 2.5 months been for you? What have been your challenges? What's been the response from large institutions, retailers, complexes, all of that?
So I think I could probably talk about this for an hour, but I'll try and limit it to a shorter duration. So yeah, it has been challenging. I think at the very start, I think like everyone else, we were also caught unawares. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, something no one had anticipated, or just the fear of the unknown. So like I was saying, like a lot of other sectors, I think we faced the challenges initially of lower manpower, because everyone obviously wants to stay home, and from a safety purpose as well, safety perspective. More so in the agri-tech space, we also have a lot of moving parts in terms of the agri supply chain. You have the goods moving from the villages to cities through a lot of, and then to a lot of distribution points. So I think the impact on transportation and logistics was quite severe to begin with. But over time, I think, like you said, we've been able to be nimble and agile and kind of figured out a way to work within this scenario as well. I think I can speak from our perspective. I think we've tried to optimize the resources that we have, the local resources, both in terms of the manpower as well as the logistics. And then I think there has been a more fine tuning of the focus in terms of the customer segments as well. Because like we know, the hospitality sector has shut down. A lot of the supermarkets are working on reduced schedules. The demand for vegetables is at an all-time high, especially with the local kirana walas and the sabji walas, because everyone's eating at home. There's no other place to go. Swiggy is not working. The order ends are not working. So I think there has definitely been an opportunity as well. And I think eventually it's turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because like I said, the demand in the agri sector has just spiked. So in that sense, yes, I think it's started out with a lot of challenges, but over time, I think we are seeing a lot of opportunity both now and moving forward post-COVID.
Vasu, if you could give me a sense in terms of how fast you guys moved, pivoted, used AI, used tech to get your act going and get going with speed. What's been that experience like for you? And of course, he's talked about the fact that, agri has seen such a big demand. Do you think that demand will continue at this pace, or you'll see a dip going forward?
So first, in terms of way we reacted, I think tech was a bigger leverage for us in terms of reaching out to farmers and giving them more clarity in terms of what exactly we want, what's the demand, and what is the price that we're offering. That sort of helped us to build a very strong certainty with farmers, and also with our customers, which is our retailers. Again, we had a very strong communication going in terms of availability, our service levels, because a lot of retailers were not operating. And this is a two-way communication in terms of understanding who's not operating and who's operating, and then also to communicate to them that we're going to deliver tomorrow. So that way, I think tech and the communication piece become very critical for us. That's on what we did. And of course, on the ground level, we worked with farmers, arranging labors for them, and in terms of our supply chain, ensuring that we have enough helpers and vehicles in place. So that's how we reacted. And our government played a very strong role in terms of helping us arrange the passes and building the ecosystem around it to sort of ensure that we operate seamless. So that's on how we reacted to the whole thing. And in terms of the demand, I think once the lockdown came in, we had the whole demand fall down for the first 2 to 3 weeks because there's a lot of uncertainty on the customer side. but then it picked back, and then like no, now we are back to our old normal levels of demands. And we see this sort of growing now because the customers have realized that this is a little more convenient way to buy vegetable and fruits from Ninjacart than going to a traditional, mandi systems.
Amith, two things that I'd like you to address. One is this: Vasu said demands have gone back to old levels. Have the demands gone back to the old levels, that is pre-COVID levels, or have the demands spiked from the pre-COVID levels? If you could give me some clarity in terms of that. And in terms of consumption, do you see consumption of this increasing and going forward, or do you see a decline, or you see it as being stable?
So initially, I would like to give, two perspectives. One is initially, this is a starting of a summer crop, a Rabi crop, which we call in Hindi. And, at the starting of summer crop, farmers were confused that, how they can sell their, crops like wheat and other crops like pulses and all. So what we did, we have a app, like the AgriBazar is an online mandi for farmers and buyers, so they can sell their material on the platform. So we could do, better job. Like in last 2 months, we loaded around, more than 12,000 trucks in the month of April and May, which gave us, GMV of over 5,000 crore. In terms of consumption, so initially the month of April and May, the consumption was from household. But I think going forward, demand is very less in terms of, pulses and wheat, flour and edible oil. The simple reason is because the marriages are not happening the way it was happening, previously before COVID. Large gatherings are not happening. Restaurants are open in a very limited manner. So demand of, edible oil, edible other items like grains, pulses are very, very limited as of now. And going forward, next 3 months, I think, demand will be less. But in terms of farmers, so farmers have sold their crops to the government on MSP price and, private players. So I think farmers are now busy with the, next planting season. So farmer pain has been released. And now, the online platform also help them to sell their material. And now online platform like us also helping them to provide them, seed, fertilizer and pesticide at their, doorsteps. So mostly this is the, digitalization of agriculture. I think it's a, it's a great future. And similarly, like government is also doing a lot of, reforms. If you look at the last 15 days announcement, so series of announcements were there where government has, amended, lost a lot of laws. And now this APMC Act has been changed. And now APMC is no longer state subject. So it will also help digital platform to run very smoothly.
In terms of farmer relief, would you say that despite all the trials that people have been facing across sectors, farmers have been somewhat relieved of this terrible pain that we're all suffering? Would you be in agreement with that? And my second question as an adjoinder would be, for Agritech startups, how has your business model and revenues looked like if you juxtapose the pre-COVID days versus the phase that we're going through right now?
I think somewhere the farmer experience, I would say, at least in our experience, the farmers that we deal with at FarmPal, I think it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. So I think there are certain, typically if we look at the farmers that are closer to the cities, closer to the urban areas. So even though the mandis have shut down, I think through platforms such as ourselves and others, they've been able to sell their produce. I think there is a new segment that has propped up during this COVID times, is essentially farmers coming into the cities and supplying to big societies, where there are 200 to 300 plus flats. So I think the farmers nearer to the cities have had a better deal of it, if I may call it that. But I think the farmers more, the farmers which are more towards the rural side, who don't have a lot of market access, for them the market access is limited to the mandis. So I think there's been a little bit more of a pain. So while FarmPal, our focus is to reach out to these rural farmers, and I think that's where the biggest relief or biggest improvement in farmers' livelihood will be. But I think now with this amendment in the Essential Commodities Act, I think a lot more and more players like ourselves, I think will be active, and that's where I think hopefully in forward there's no such thing as COVID, but I think there'll be a lot more benefit for the rural farmers as well. So in my opinion, I think it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. Talking about the revenues, I think like I said earlier, I think initially all of us were caught a little unawares. But I think over time, like Vasu said, I think leveraging tech, that's been critical. I think we've been able to somewhere optimize using tech, and I think the demand, especially from the retailers, which we have seen a 3x to 5x spike in most areas. So I think that has helped kind of bring our revenues back to the level where it was in the pre-COVID days. So we did see a little bit of a dip, I would say 10 to 15% dip, but this month onwards it's gone back to the pre-COVID levels. And I'm very positive that I think we will see some after effects. We are still not out of it, but I think there will be similar buying patterns on the consumer side. So I think for the next 6 to 8 months we might see a lot more uptick in the buying from platforms or companies such as ourselves. So we are hoping to cash in on some of those revenues or some of those opportunities. In addition, I think we have also explored or looked into this, what I would call a B2B to C model, where we are able to reach out to societies or larger groups so that they can directly buy, vegetables through us directly from the farmers. So I think that's another segment that has opened up, due to COVID. So I definitely see an uptick in the next 6 to 8 months. It's up to us now, how we best leverage this opportunity.
6 to 8 months, yes, uptick in demand. But what is the sense you're getting for this space? I've just saw that another peer of yours has just got funded, Dihat, and during these trying times when VCs are being, a little bit stingy, I think that deal going through is good news for all three of you and the sector and all other players in the space. How do you see agri-tech startups going forward, let's say in the next 1 to 5 years? How much of an advantage is it going to be for them, and what kind of scaling up are we talking about?
I think the timing is great. I think it's a great time to be in agri-tech space. Both on a government side, we see a lot of positive policies coming out, and where they're encouraging new startups and companies to sort of invest in infrastructure that sort of can go a long way. One, two, there is a lot of digital penetration. With the cheap data and etc. The farmers are able to access technology in a much better way. Also at the retailer side, the entire supply chain is sort of becoming very strongly digital now. Right. So with these digital infrastructure and also the you have capital coming in with the government policies opening up. So I think it's a great time for a lot of companies to sort of look at agri-tech space, invest for a long-term value. So I think we will see a lot more momentum, both in terms of the funding as well as more companies exploring this space in the at least 3 to 5 year space.
Amith, do you think going forward there's going to be a lot more interest from VCs in this space, given the news we've seen?
Yeah, definitely. We have been receiving a lot of queries from VCs that what is what kind of model emerging in agri-tech space, what kind of what is the farmers thinking, how they are familiar with the app and everything. So we are getting a lot of queries as of now, and I think agri-tech will be hottest area to invest in next 2 to 3 years, and next you will see a lot of 2-3 unicorn will come from this sector. So I think this is the one of the best sector, and which is it is this sector has proved that it is a recession proof sector. So I think it has a great future.
What are the challenges you see going forward? Yes, this is all good news, but what are the big obstacles that the sector needs to overcome?
Yeah, the sector is good, and there are some challenges like top-notch employees from good institute. They don't want to work in a rural areas, so that's one challenge I could feel. I always feel like whenever I recruit people from good B schools, so they always want job in only in Delhi metros or Bombay. They don't want to work in in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So that's a one challenge which I always feel. Second is in terms of the growth rate, this is a farmer are using app, but you cannot give 400 to 500% growth in month on month, which VCs expect. So I think that's a challenge, and if in very first year or when 1.5 year, this challenge will remain same, and after 1.5 year, the growth will real growth will come. These two challenge, I feel it will we have to deal with.
Sure. Puneet, you want to add to that in terms of challenges you foresee and obstacles to overcome?
Yes, absolutely. I think, in my opinion, I don't think the challenges have changed. I think Agritech always had these challenges. I don't think there's much effect of the COVID situation. So while the space is hot, I think there will be some challenges we have to overcome. So just to give you an example, so at FarmPal, we use a lot of tech to connect the front end, which is our consumers or retailers, with our farmers directly. And the entire supply chain and all these moving parts are managed through tech. However, I think just the nature of the agri sector, I think it's always been kind of at the the back end of the technology adoption. I think the technology adoption or the digital penetration has just started. So I think to truly realize the potential of agri sector, I think it will take some time before that before that adoption becomes faster. The different stakeholders become more tech savvy. So another example is, until now or until very recently, even our customers who are the retailers, they were working in this very typical mindset of going to the mandis every day morning and then setting up their shop and running it the entire day. So I think that change in mindset where you can, instead of going to the mandi, you can place those same orders via an app. You can get that service right to your doorstep. You can get the desired quality. And especially now within these COVID times where, there's a lot more focus on contactless, as well as people for their safety don't want to go into the mandis. So I think as these whether you call it on the customer side or on the farmer side, as these patterns, whether in terms of demand or purchase, as these change, I think these challenges will evolve. I think tech will play a strong role, but like I said, as the penetration increases, I think that's when things will start to really accelerate in this sector.
One person's advantage is another person's downfall. So the agri-tech sector, it being now in an advantageous position, would obviously mean that some others would have to collapse for agri-tech to truly gain momentum. Which are those areas that you'll probably be displacing?
I think it's going to be largely who creates better value, right? End of the day, if you're able to, I think Agritechs, if you're able to bring in a better value to the table, both for the farmer as well as customer, by leveraging tech and removing inefficiency, I think there'll be a shift, right? I think that has been the fundamental rule of any business in the sense. Having said that, I mean, it's not that mandis will disappear anytime soon, right? Because they offer a certain value which agri-tech companies will not offer at least for some more time. It might even we can look at something like a decade before where there'll be a mainstream shift in a bigger way. So I think both agri-techs and mandis and the existing infrastructures will coexist for a lot more time to come. Till we're able to create a very stronger value at a mainstream level.
Okay, you want to add to that, Amith?
Agritech cannot, replace middleman because, in India, land holdings are very, very small. So these aggregators are required, and these agri-tech companies, will bring a lot of efficiency in the system, in whole system, and it will bring cost to the final processors and the consumer. So I think it's a, value addition program in my view.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So you're saying you're value adding, but there will be no deletion whatsoever. Puneet, you're in agreement with that? Or are you all just being politically correct?
No, I think there is some truth to that, because if you look at the like Amith said, if you look at the land holdings, especially if you again move towards the interior, there's a lot of marginal land holdings. So I think more than the deletion, I think it will be more like a pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. I completely, there will be a lot more value add, because I feel that right now the middlemen have a lot of the, the advantage because they control most of the information. So there is an unfair advantage, and which also, as we all know, leads to the exploitation of the farmer. So I think moving forward, the beneficiary will be the supply chain, will be the farmer, definitely, because I think those efficiencies will help these, help these two aspects. However, I think there may be some elimination of the middlemen, but I think there is also, as both Amith and Vasu are saying, there's also a piece of the jigsaw puzzle where I think they can retrofit and add value. And I think that's so, I don't think it's a either or situation. I think over time, at least for the next few years, I think it's as agri-tech companies gain more and more ground, I think it is for them to redefine and evaluate, what value they will add. But I do see them adding value, especially at the back end.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank all of you for your time and all the very best for the agri-tech space to really rev up and start getting into faster gears. Also, thank you, all three of you, for helping a lot of us out during these very, very tough and trying times. All the very best. Stay happy and stay safe.